screenshot action. All right, well, hello everyone. My name is Kayla Matheus. I am founder and CEO of MOTI, which we'll be learning a little bit about later on. The high-level overview is we create a personable smart object that helps you build good habits. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is all about habit formation and why it is so damn hard, but how it's extremely important and what we can do about it. But first, a little background about myself and who you're randomly listening to up here. So my background didn't start out in habit formation or behavioral science. It was me as a double major at Yale in mechanical engineering and studio art, of all things. I've always been very right brain, left brain, combine the two together. And what I did with that is smush it into product design because I was fascinated by understanding how we could build things that would help people improve their lifestyles. So taught design thinking, human-centered design to college students across the country for a couple of years, worked as a product designer at SC Johnson, but realized very quickly that I wanted to follow my own passion and start a company and knew that habit formation was going to be what it was about because I knew that it was so important. Habits make up over 45% of our daily routines, and it's these routines that directly translate into our health and happiness. And I've been struggling with habit formation myself. So while I'm sure everyone in this room, based off of what this meetup is about, has something that they wish they did more of, whether it is that exercise, whether it is starting a meditation practice, or maybe it's drinking your 8 glasses of water a day or hydrating enough. For me, it was about physical therapy. So I tore my ACL when I was in high school, and I've been in and out of PT for literally over a decade, and was never able to form that very simple but impactful habit at home. That made me feel really guilty, so I started to look into the science behind it. But I also noticed that I was not alone. So if you look at the stats, 80% of Americans each year fail at their New Year's resolutions. That's pretty dismal, right? So of course it begs the question of why are we failing? So when I was first starting MOTI, I did a lot of user research. I talked to a lot of people, had thousands of touch points to understand habit formation in addition to the existing research. And I heard a number of things, but they kind of came down to three patterns. So one, it just kind of fizzled out. I don't really know what happened. Or maybe, hey, there was an impetus of I moved, I broke up with someone, I changed job, there was this shift in routine. Or we heard a lot about people who would have gym buddies or friends that they would do something with in terms of their habit formation, but then they left or they weren't reliable in terms of accountability. So from that research, I figured out that there are 3 big things that stands in the way, whether it's a lack of knowledge about how to set up your habit properly, what are those best practices, or what I like to call the you want to do it but you don't want to do it problem, where of course we all want to be healthier, we want to do these things, we know what they are, but in that moment we want to stay on the couch watching Netflix instead of going up and getting to the gym. I see a lot of nodding heads. This is resonating, right? And then of course lack of accountability. That was another thing that came through. Now, if we compare that to the science, so what does the science say about how we succeed at habits? There's a bunch of models out there. You might be familiar with BJ Fogg over at Stanford and his model. We're saying in order to have this behavior, you need to have motivation, ability, and a trigger all at the same moment. And this is pretty basic, that makes sense, right? You need to be able to do the thing. You need to have motivation to do the thing. And then you need to have some sort of impetus. Really, the question for me then became, well, what does motivation actually mean? What does it mean to have high motivation? And if you look at a lot of, oh no, go back. There we go. A lot of books are coming out on this today that's making it more accessible to your average reader, whether it's from Power of Habit and Yuri Y'all. These 2 models are very similar in that you really, our brains are very basic. We need that trigger, that routine, and that reward. And if you think about it, right, most good habits are delayed gratification. It's why it's so hard to form them, but so easy to form a bad habit because you have that immediate gratification, that immediate reward. Ultimately, we still have our lizard brain when it comes for habit formation. And you can start to think about, okay, well, what are these rewards? And some of you might be thinking, well, what about that buzzword out in the world right now about gamification? So Jane McGonigal has a great TED Talk, if you haven't seen it yet. She's talking about how we need to apply how we use games and gamification into reality because ultimately our reality is broken. And we need to acknowledge that we need to have that type of reward, that type of gratification that games give us, but insert it into our daily lives and to solve bigger problems as well. So looking at MOTI, looking at how do we get people from sitting on the couch watching Netflix to actually behaving in the ways that they want to behave. You can look at the models and say, okay, we already know at a minimum that you have to know what you should be doing. That's not an issue. We get bombarded with news articles about that all day long. You have to have the ability to do it, which is like, okay, yes, that makes sense. There's not really much to that. And then a desire to do it, which is, again, that issue I said of wanting to do it but not actually wanting to do it. So then what do you need beyond that threshold in order to have success? And based off of the scientific literature and the user research I was doing, it did come down to these three things: that how do you have the right types of triggers, routines, and rewards? How do you have the accountability until your body naturally takes over habit formation? Because at a certain point, you're going to get that runner's high. At a certain point, your body is going to feel very weird if you don't have that glass of water every day at 11 a.m. So at a certain point, your body takes over, but how do you get in that chunk and get yourself to that place and have the accountability to do so? And then knowing, of course, the best ways to set yourself up for success. And at MOTI, we apply this to another model that we like to say is it's basically like you're playing a sport. You really need to have a habit ecosystem. It's not enough to say, I want to do it, so I'm going to do it, right? If you think about your brain as being the player, there's a couple elements here. You need that cheerleader, that immediate encouragement and gratification, the positivity, the positive reinforcement. But you also need the coach, which is that knowledge, that tracking, maybe it's the data, as well as the team, feeling like you're part of a movement and something that's bigger than yourself. At this point, I want to introduce MOTI. So this is a MOTI. It is that personable smart object that I mentioned, and you'll notice it is not an app, it is not a wearable, it is a cute little robot. And there's a very specific reason to why MOTI exists like this. And it's going back to the early days of when I was researching. I'm a human-centered designer. I started to grab and build early on. In fact, I thought that the way to solve this problem was to sit my 5 case study members down and say, all right, we're going to talk through your habit loop. Here are all of your triggers. Let's figure out what's your routine and your reward, and we're going to do all of these best tips and tricks. And I'm going to put all this knowledge onto you, and you will go and be successful. That did not work. That did not work, right? Instead, it was when I started to bring out physical objects that things started to get interesting. Most importantly, these guys right here, grab some desk toys, grab an Arduino, a speaker, a push button, literally you push it, it makes a happy noise, it's super dumb, but it worked. Because the case study people came back to me completely in love for a number of reasons. But I'm gonna talk really quick about how social robotics comes into this. So after I made those products, I said, aha, behavioral science is not enough. How do we bring this into the consumer world? There's a whole body of research that's been studying for the past 10 decades about how we as humans create emotional relationships with tech. So there's ways that you can bring in these semi-anthropomorphized features. How can you imbue that technology with a personality so that it's driving accountability? There's studies about how we interact with physical objects, much more engaging and motivating than the same exact thing, but in a 2-dimensional screen representation. It makes a lot of sense. This is how we evolved. We live in a 3-dimensional type of world. So taking these types of insights in mind, and it's not just technology, right? So how many of you are familiar with a Daruma doll? Couple? Okay. So this is like a historical object, right? It comes from Japanese culture. The idea is you can see these 2 white eyes. They're white, and you color one in black when you commit to something. Maybe it's a behavior, maybe it's a habit, maybe it's some sort of change in your life, whatever. You put it in your home, and it becomes this totem. You walk by it, you see it every day. It kind of looks like a person, so you might feel guilty if you haven't done it yet. It inspires you. You're only allowed to fill in that other eye when you've completed that task. So what we're doing with MOTI is essentially creating a 21st century Daruma doll. So I'll talk a little bit, I'll get to how MOTI works, but let's compare habit loop theory, these types of models that you need to form habits from the behavioral science, and also look at the social robotics and apply it to what's out in the market today. And it really comes down to 2 categories, wearables and IoT, and then mobile apps. And if you look at things like a Fitbit, all these other type of wearable activity trackers, they tend to share a flaw. They don't have sustained behavior change for a number of reasons. One of which being, you have to charge it, you have to remember to charge it, you have to remember to put it on. You're basically forming a secondary habit just to use the habit tool, which is problematic. It's narrow, you can only use it for a couple types of habits. And if you think about this trigger routine reward, are you getting the right types of triggers? Is a buzz on my wrist actually motivating enough and nudging enough to change that behavior and do the routine? Is a little tiny, like, oh, I got my 5 lights out of 5, is that enough of a reward? And it's not changing over time, etc. Right? And then, of course, with mobile apps, you can think about that buzz of your wrist. It's kind of like a push notification. A lot of mobile apps rely on push notifications, but they happen at a single moment in time. And in that moment in time, if that's not actionable, it's completely useless because we get hundreds. It depends on who you are and how many apps you have. But like we have many, many apps on our phones all sending us these push notifications. So the trigger here really isn't working. And you also are missing oftentimes the reward in these apps because ultimately they're stuck on a phone and you don't, for the most part, you cannot build a personal relationship with your phone. So now I'm getting to how MOTI works, which you're probably wondering about. So MOTI, of course, its first feature is his physicality. He becomes what's known as an environmental cue. So one glance, you're immediately reminded of your habit. But even it's not that single moment in time, you can always come back to it. And now whenever you do your good habit, say you get off social media, go to bed, you actually push a push button on MOTI's face that's tangible. This is super Pavlovian, very, very simple, but it's giving you that immediate reward. It gives your brain that shot of dopamine that it craves. Plus the reward goes deeper than that. So as one of our beta users said, it's like you're impressing someone even though it's not actually a someone. So you feel really good about yourself because not only are you acknowledging that small win, but something outside of yourself is saying, hey, good job. Now, of course, flip side, if you aren't doing really great at your habit, MOTI might get sad or it might get angry at you. It's these emotive type of reminders, emotive types of triggers that go much deeper than a push notification and elicit more of that more meaningful response from our users. But if we look back at that model that I mentioned of the player and the coach and the team, MOTI, the hardware, is the front-facing part of the product, but it's also supported by smart software. So in addition to that gratification you get, we have on the back end user dashboards about what are the best ways to set up your habit. We have a curated experience for that, as well as habit modules, the ability to integrate, etc. So it's really about building out an ecosystem that's going to be fully supporting your habit formation. Now the question, of course, is does this work? So we are early stages. We ran a beta a couple of months ago and got some really great early validation that this path, this new way of thinking about combining not just the behavioral science but also the social robotics is really, really strong. We had 85% of our users say that MOTI was essential to their habit formation. We just got hit over the head over and over again with why it's so important to have a physical object and have something that people have an emotional relationship with. Those are boring. I basically mentioned already why MOTI is different from its competitors or from other types of solutions out there in the market. It's physical, it's emotive, and it's seamless, right? So again, you don't have to form a habit just to use MOTI. It's literally as simple as a push of a button. If you so desire, you can dive deeper if you want to, but you don't need to. Uh-oh. It's that magic, oh, there we go. Thought we were running into the same issue as before. Oh, wow. Okay. So to wrap up, I recently wrote a Medium article that you guys can check out about how to stick to your New Year's resolution. So it's February 11th, which probably means that many of you are failing at your New Year's resolutions. So if you want to pick that up again, a summary of some tips and tricks there. So even if you don't have a MOTI yet, because we still are in pilot mode and we have a couple left over, so you can go online and get whatever you want to. But until we launch, here's what I suggest, right? It's focus on the easiest but still impactful habit first. If you know about BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits program, this is somewhat similar. Really, you want to set yourself up for success there. And the important part is to make it actionable. So with MOTI, because it literally is that push of a button, you have to make your habit binary. You have to make it such that you have to say, yes, I did it, or no, I did it. There's no awkward little like gray area of, oh, did I eat healthy today? What does that actually mean? You know, did I eat my 5 fruits and vegetables? Did I eat breakfast? Did I hydrate? Whatever, right? So really, really make it actionable. And then celebrating each small win, right? So this is super important. You gotta find some way to reward yourself that is meaningful. So whether that is getting an accountability buddy who's gonna virtual high five you over text whenever you do it. Hopefully that person is willing to do it 8 times a day, multiple days per week. We'll see, but luckily MOTI does not get tired of celebrating for you. And then get outside of your head to stay accountable. So a checklist is great, but it's completely isolating. right? You need to get that pseudo-social experience. So whether it's a MOTI, whether it's a friend, whether some way to get out of your own head. And of course, you want to see progress. You want to see that graph go up. But one of the biggest things we learned from our beta is that life happens. So whether it is, oh, I broke a bunch of bones in my body and can't move anymore, or family emergency, or I'm really stressed out right now, allow yourself that time to breathe, and it's okay to take a break. Come back to your habit formation when your routine is right. All right, well, thanks very much, guys.
Questions?
Yeah, I'll take questions. I'll say I'm a horrible person and forgot my business card, so if you want to chat, jot this down now. Plus, we are, I got to do a little pitch here. We're hiring, so anyone who's super interested in this space and what we're doing, and also this web development or data science, come talk to me as well. Thanks, guys. All right, questions?
Yeah. So do you hit a button when you've done something good, and then you also hit a button when you've done something bad?
So right now, MOTI's focused on forming good habits. So you push a button when you do the good habit. Now, you're more than welcome to set your habit to be something that's not so great for you. That is up to you. If you want to break a bad habit, that's a slightly different mechanism. So the best way to break that bad habit is to replace it with a good one. So you still could use MOTI for that good one replacement. Down the line, we'll look more specifically at habit association.
I saw that you had what seemed like an automatic response to the woman who was overeating.
Right.
So how does that work? How does it know?
So right now, that's really simple. MOTI learns when you're supposed to be doing your habit. And if you aren't, and you aren't pushing his button, then it's going to go into reminder mode. What we're doing down the line is going to be integrating with other smart sensors, so whether it's on your phone, another device, so then we can also cross-verify.
Sure.
Oh, God. Wait, someone over there was up first, yeah. Pricing? Yep, so right now we're selling our pilot units at $79.
That's awesome.
We'll just go down the line here.
You mentioned there are competitors in the market. What are your top three competitors?
So competitors, there's no one like MOTI that's really doing a social robot like this, but if you look at other solutions, I'd say that Lark is probably the closest on the app side. On the wearables side, I mean, we don't actually see them as competitors because we see them as potential partners. Again, wearables is super great at getting data, numbers, and tracking, but missing the psychological hand-holding so you can put them together and get something really powerful.
How about something like Pavlok, which kind of
So Pavlok is like our complete opposite, right? It's habit cessation. It's like negative reinforcement. You are literally shocking yourself. It's like we're all about pure positivity and like rah. Yeah, go look it up. It's really interesting, and you'll see their branding is even like the complete opposite of what ours is. But so Pavlok, it's interesting. We'll probably look into them a little more when we start doing habit cessation.
Do you think kind of negative reinforcement is better to kind of break habits versus positive to kind of build habits, or is this?
So again, my opinion there is you can break it, but ultimately you still need to have something that's going to come in and replace that, right? So what's the positive thing? What's the reward that you're going to get? Because it's super easy to fall back otherwise.
So what good habit have you formed? What are some of the examples that you can share?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, physical therapy was the inspiration, and that's what I'm using my MOTI for now. But our beta users all across the board. So people who want to write every day, because they want to be a writer, people who are meditating, doing daily gratitude practice. We've got folks who are doing more like physical, going to the gym, physical therapy, but also using your standing desk at work was one, right? You can have that tool, doesn't mean you're actually going to use it. So that was a really great one.
Can they track multiple habits, or is it really just one?
Yeah, so like one of the things that we learned was everyone wants to do everything at the same time. And then you spread yourself too thin. And the one thing that kills habit formation is feelings of negativity, guilt, frustration. So we say, no, you can only do one. Focus on that, hit it out of the park. You can use it in series. You can use multiple in parallel. But you have to have that symbolic association also so that you look at it and you're like, I think I see MOTI, but I'm immediately thinking about drinking water.
Is that MOTI learns when the user needs to take action?
Yeah.
Is that based on user input? How smart is it?
Right now it's user input, right, because we're early stages, but again, we'll integrate with other sensors that can provide that. Your MOTI also evolves over time, so we know where you are in your habit progression, so that's another part of the smarts.
And roughly when does MOTI say, oh hey, congrats, you finally formed this habit?
Yeah, so one of the studies that we look at says, average is 66 days, but the range is 18 to like 250 something, right? So really difficult to predict. We do it based off of compliance and what we call your habit score, and have you been at the highest habit score for 2 weeks?
You guys have any plans to do that MOTI app with the Amazon
Yeah, you're not the first person who said that. Down the line, sure. We haven't looked into it explicitly, but it's something on our mind.
What was your question?
About integrating with Amazon Echo.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have a different question?
So that's habit formation. What about goal achievement? Can it be set up to achieve a goal?
So it's a really simple platform. Theoretically, yes. The goal, that goal needs to be repetitive though. So MOTI works best when it's something that's happening every day, ideally multiple times a day, or at least every other day, or like 3 times a week, right? So you would really want to have it be, maybe I'm setting up my habit, I'm going to get through my 5 to-do list items. Every morning I set what those are, and then I push MOTI every time I do one. And if I don't get through those 5, then I haven't completed it for the day. And that's one way that you could do that. But it's more specifically set up for habits as opposed to like, I'm going to check these things off.
Could you set it up like, I want to run 3 miles a day, and then let me know when I get to 1,000 miles?
Yeah, so that's one thing that we'll develop with the modules is incremental adjustments to the parameters of your MOTI. Like, maybe you start off small, this might not be what you're getting at, but you start off small and then you add it incrementally. But you'll be able to basically pull all your data, and we'll do deeper analytics on the dashboard side as well.
We have time for one more question.
Okay.
If you had like one at work and one at home, would they be linked together? So
Yep, so we're planning on selling 2 packs. We either have it be 2 different habits or linked to the same one. That's a really, really common use case that we see.
Kayla,
Sweet, thanks, babe.
thank you very much. One thing that Kayla's company is giving away, I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is. She'll be able to tell you exactly what it is. And the way that I want to get through this giveaway is the first person that